Hey everyone, get ready to dive deep with us. We're going to be cracking open Bruce Lee's striking thoughts.
Oh, nice.
I don't know about you, but I always think of Bruce Lee and those nunchucks come to mind, right?
Yeah, total legend.
But this book, this is Bruce Lee Unplugged. It's his philosophy, his outlook on life, all laid bare.
Yeah, and what's so interesting about this book is that it's not your typical philosophy book. Like, it's not a systematic treatise or anything. It's more like a collection of his thoughts and reflections, like sketches of ideas.
Right.
Like, we're getting a glimpse into his personal notes, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's like having a conversation with him over a cup of tea.
I like that.
Except, the tea is actually wisdom.
Nice. Yeah, and that's what makes it perfect for what we do here on the Deep Dive. You get these raw, powerful insights that really make you stop and think, wow, I've never thought about it like that before.
Okay, so before we jump in, full disclosure, I thought I knew a bit about Bruce Lee, martial arts master, movie star, the legend.
Yeah.
But then I got to this part where he compares water to the nature of reality.
Okay.
And I'll be honest, I was like, okay, Bruce, where are we going with this?
Right.
But then I read his moon in the water analogy and it all clicked.
Yeah.
And trust me, we're going to unpack that.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty mind-blowing.
We absolutely will. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Bruce Lee delves into self-knowledge as the key to liberation, this idea that nothingness isn't empty, but like this dynamic wellspring of potential. He even flips Descartes' famous quote on its head. Instead of, I think, therefore I am, Lee says, I am, therefore I think.
Whoa.
And that right there speaks volumes about his approach to life.
Okay, I'm hooked. Let's dive into his perspective on reality and existence.
Let's do it.
In reality, he drops this truth bomb. Matter and energy are one.
It's such a powerful statement about interconnectedness. He's talking about the universe as this living, breathing entity, not just a bunch of separate pieces.
It reminds me of how he moved in his martial arts.
Yeah.
So fluid, so adaptable.
Oh, yeah.
Like he wasn't fighting against the energy, he was moving with it.
Exactly. And this idea of not just thinking about action, but like being action, that's a huge theme we see throughout Striking Thoughts.
So about that I am, therefore I think idea.
Yeah.
That really struck me. It feels so empowering. Like we create meaning through our experiences in the world, not just by, sitting around pondering life.
Right. Bruce Lee challenged that Western philosophical tendency to get lost in abstraction.
Yeah.
For him, it always came back to lived experience. But here's where it gets even more interesting. He adds this caveat. Not everything that exists thinks.
Okay.
It's like he's acknowledging a reality beyond human understanding, a force much greater than ourselves.
Wow, yeah. It's like he's saying, hey, experience is paramount, but don't get cocky and think you've got it all figured out. Which, let's be honest, is a good reminder for all of us.
Right.
But this idea of shaping our reality through action, that takes us to his thoughts on life's laws, right?
Absolutely. And this is where we see this fascinating tension between following external rules and a kind of inner law of self-will. Like, what feels right in your gut.
So in the laws, Lee's grappling with this idea of societal laws, right, versus what he calls the human law in himself. Like he's recognizing that, yeah, there are rules we got to follow out there in the world, but there's also this inner compass, this gut feeling that we need to listen to.
It's about staying true to yourself even amidst all those external pressures and expectations. And this ties directly into his perspective on cause and effect.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee was a firm believer that we are the architects of our own lives. It wasn't about fate or destiny or anything like that. It was about taking ownership of our choices and understanding their consequences.
Yeah, it's so easy to fall into that trap of blaming external circumstances,
Yeah,
right? But Lee's saying, nope, you have the power to shape your reality,
Yeah.
which, when you think about it, is both empowering and a little daunting.
It is. It's a call to responsibility. He's reminding us that every action creates a ripple effect. And this is where we can bring in that concept of wu-wei, or natural action, which you mentioned earlier.
Okay, yes. Wu-wei. I'll admit, when I first came across that term, I was a little lost. It's not exactly something we throw around in everyday conversation, is it?
Not quite. Think of it like this. Imagine a sailboat on the water.
Okay.
The sailor doesn't fight against the wind. They adjust their sails to harness its power right.
Right.
Wu-wei is about aligning yourself with the natural flow of events rather than trying to force your will upon the world. It's about effortlessness within action.
Okay, that analogy makes so much sense. So it's not about being passive. It's about finding that sweet spot between effort and ease.
Yeah.
Like a dancer moving effortlessly across the floor.
Exactly.
There's obviously a ton of skill and practice behind it, but it looks effortless.
Exactly. It's about cultivating that sense of effortless action where your thoughts and movements are in harmony with the world around you. And this applies to everything, from tackling a challenging project at work to navigating a difficult conversation with a loved one. It's about being present, adaptable, and responsive to the situation at hand.
This has given me a lot to think about. So for our listener who's maybe feeling a little overwhelmed right now, what's the key takeaway here? How can they actually apply this idea of Wu Wei to their own lives?
I think it starts with awareness. You know, just pay attention to those moments when you're forcing things, when you're swimming upstream against the current.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, is there a way I can approach the situation with more ease and flexibility? It's about finding that balance between intention and letting go, trusting that sometimes that path of least resistance is the most effective one.
I love that. It's such a powerful reminder that sometimes the best action is to surrender to the flow, to trust the process. Which oddly enough leads us to one of Lee's most intriguing ideas, the void.
And this is where his Eastern influences really shine through, because when Bruce Lee talks about the void, he's not talking about emptiness in the way we typically think of it.
Yeah, in the void, he describes it as this all-inclusive space filled with life and power. It's definitely not the Western concept of nothingness.
Exactly. He doesn't see the void as this scary, empty abyss. Instead, he sees it as a living void, a source of infinite creative energy and potential. It's the fertile ground from which all things arise.
Okay, so how do we tap into that? Because most of us, we see that emptiness, that unknown, and we freak out a little, right?
Yeah, it's a natural human response to fear the unknown.
Right.
But what if we could approach those empty spaces in our lives not with fear, but with a sense of curiosity and possibility? What if those seemingly empty spaces are actually the birthplace of our greatest creativity and growth?
That's a great question. It's like, what if we could just shift our perspective and see those moments of uncertainty not as roadblocks, but as opportunities for transformation?
Yeah.
And you know what this actually reminds me of? Something else Bruce Lee wasn't afraid of? Death.
Mm.
And that fearlessness stemmed from his understanding of the void.
Yeah.
He didn't see death as an ending, but as a natural part of life's ever-flowing process. This constant cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, just like in nature.
It's like he saw the bigger picture, you know, the interconnectedness of it all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was deeply influenced by Taoism and Zen Buddhism, which emphasize this cyclical view of life and death.
Right.
It's a perspective that can help us transcend the fear of mortality and approach life with a sense of acceptance and even wonder.
Yeah, for sure.
This is blowing my mind. We've gone from reality and laws to the void and
Right.
even death all in the span of what, like 20 minutes?
I know, right?
And yet it all feels so connected, so relevant.
That's the power of Bruce Lee's thinking.
Yeah.
It's profound yet accessible. He takes these big philosophical concepts and makes them feel grounded and applicable to our everyday lives.
Okay, so speaking of everyday life, Lee was a big advocate for action, right? Not just thinking about doing something, but actually getting out there and doing it.
Oh yeah, he walked the walk.
And that takes us to On Being Human, where he challenges us to, well, actually be human, to engage fully with the world and live authentically.
He doesn't mince words either. He calls out those who spend their lives planning but never actually taking action.
Yeah.
He says, and I quote, "The point is the doing."
He's got a point, doesn't he? It's so easy to get stuck in that cycle of planning and overthinking. But Lee's reminding us that real growth, real change happens in the arena, not on the sidelines.
Absolutely. And this isn't just about physical action either. It's about aligning your actions with your values, with your deepest desires. You know, it's about showing up authentically in the world, even when it's scary or uncomfortable.
And that actually reminds me of that story he tells in Self-Knowledge as the road to freedom. He's talking about how when he first arrived in Hollywood, he felt like a robot. Because he wasn't being true to himself. He was trying to fit into this mold that others had created for him.
That story is so powerful because it highlights the importance of self-knowledge as the foundation for everything else. It's only when you truly know yourself, when you're comfortable in your own skin, that you can start to break free from those external expectations and live a life that's authentic to you.
It's like he's saying, screw the script, write your own story. But that's easier said than done, right? How do we even begin to uncover that true self, that authentic voice within?
It starts with self-honesty, which, let's be real, can be brutal. It's about facing those uncomfortable truths about ourselves, the good, the bad, and the ugly. But it's in that space of radical self-acceptance that real transformation can occur.
So it's not about striving for some perfect version of ourselves, but about embracing our imperfections, our quirks, all those things that make us unique. Because ultimately, those imperfections are what make us interesting, right?
Exactly. And this journey of self-discovery, it's not a destination. It's a lifelong process. Which brings us to one of the themes that I think is particularly relevant today, especially in our hyper-competitive, image-driven world: success.
Oh, yeah. Lee had some pretty strong opinions about success. And in success, he doesn't sugarcoat it. He says, he who wants to succeed should learn how to fight, to strive, and to suffer.
He understood that the path to success is rarely linear. It's paved with challenges, setbacks, and moments of self-doubt. But it's in those moments of struggle that we discover our resilience, our grit, our true capacity for growth.
But he also warns against getting blinded by success, right? In The Biggest Disadvantage of Success, he talks about the loss of privacy, and in Success Complicates Simplicity, he talks about how success can actually make life more complicated, pulling you away from that core sense of self.
Exactly. It's like that saying, be careful what you wish for, because sometimes achieving those external markers of success, the money, the fame, the recognition, can actually lead us further away from what truly matters.
So how do we navigate that? How do we stay grounded, stay true to ourselves, even in the face of achievement and external validation?
Lee believed that self-knowledge was the antidote to the potential pitfalls of success. It's about not letting those external achievements define you, about staying connected to your values and priorities, no matter what life throws your way.
And this leads us to a final provocative thought from Bruce Lee, something for you to ponder as we wrap up this deep dive. While he achieved incredible success in his own life, he also recognized its limitations. He wrote, "Stars rise and fall. What will be your legacy?"
It's a powerful question, isn't it? Because ultimately, true success isn't about external achievements. It's about living a life that is meaningful and authentic to you. It's about the impact you make on the world, the relationships you cultivate, the legacy you leave behind.
So as you move through your own life, ask yourself, what will be your legacy? What mark do you want to leave on the world? And how can you start living into that legacy today?
Bruce Lee's striking thoughts is a wellspring of wisdom, offering timeless insights that can guide us on our own journeys of self-discovery and personal growth.
It's a book to revisit again and again, each time uncovering new layers of meaning and inspiration. And if there's one thing I've learned from this deep dive, it's this. Be like water, my friends. Be adaptable, be resilient, and most importantly, be yourself.